From Washington, D.C., this is the Muslim News on Muslim Network TV. Assalamu alaikum, I'm Hena Zuberi. First, the headlines. Indigenous Peoples Day commemorated across America. Algeria tells France to decolonize its history in new Spat. Targeting minorities was at the root of the terrorism industry in the United States. Taliban plan to fight Daesh without U.S. help. And a New Jersey teacher is accused of removing a student's hijab. Our top story tonight. Today marks the first time a U.S. president has officially recognized Indigenous Peoples Day. President Joe Biden on Friday issued a proclamation naming October 11th Indigenous Peoples Day. It will be observed the same day as Columbus Day, which became a national holiday in 1934 and is observed on the second Monday of October. Indigenous Peoples Day recognizes the history and contributions of Indigenous people, honors their place as the first inhabitants of the Americas, and what they suffered under European settler colonialism. This was Biden's first such presidential proclamation. He said the nation must never forget the centuries-long campaign of violence, displacement, assimilation, and terror wrought upon Native communities and the tribal nations. Numerous states, cities, and school districts across the U.S. already have declared the second Monday of October Indigenous Peoples Day. Boston and Philadelphia added official observances this year. In many places, the day has replaced Columbus Day. A new California law bans the sale of all off-road gas-powered engines. This includes generators, lawn equipment, pressure washers, chainsaws, weed trimmers, and golf carts. According to the Los Angeles Times, under the new law, these machines must be zero emissions, which means they have to be either battery-powered or plugged in. Mark Berman, the legislation's author, said it's a modest approach to limit the massive amounts of pollution such equipment emits and its health impacts on workers. The new law is expected to affect nearly 50,000 small businesses. California's budget includes $30 million to help professional landscapers and gardeners quit using gas-powered equipment. According to the National Association of Landscape Professionals, zero-emission commercial equipment is more expensive and less efficient than gas-powered equipment. A social media post by Olympian Ibtihaj Muhammad alleges a Muslim student in Maplewood, New Jersey, was assaulted by a teacher who forcibly removed the girl's hijab at school. Muhammad is the first American Muslim woman to wear a hijab while competing with the U.S. Olympic team. Muhammad said that the Seth Boyden Elementary second grader resisted by trying to hold on to her hijab, but the teacher pulled it off, exposing her hair to the class. Muhammad said stripping a child of clothing in front of classmates is humiliating, traumatic, and abusive. The South Orange Maplewood School District said it is investigating the allegation. Abdul Qadir Khan, celebrated as the father of Pakistan's nuclear weapons program, died Sunday at the age of 85. The nuclear scientist has long been hailed a national hero for transforming Pakistan into the world's first Muslim nuclear weapons power. This was in response to India acquiring nuclear weapons. Islamabad first carried out atomic tests in 1998 in response to tests by India. Pakistani Prime Minister Imran Khan joined a chorus of voices lamenting the country had lost a national icon. Abdul Qadir Khan had a state funeral Sunday afternoon at Islamabad's Faisal Mosque. Flags were ordered to fly at half-mast. Khan's coffin was draped with a Pakistani flag as a massive crowd gathered to bid him farewell amid tight security. Thousands of people crammed into an uncovered enclosure nearby, praying in the downpour. 2 Palestinians were wounded Sunday while protesting the demolition of several historic Muslim graves in occupied East Jerusalem. Reports say that Israeli bulldozers not only demolished Palestinian tombs, but also desecrated and scattered the bones within. Locals gathered at the cemetery after hearing this. Anadolu Agency reports that an Israeli court had given the Israeli Archaeological Directorate permission to work on a site close to the graveyard. Ahmed Ad-Dajani, executive director of the Commission for the Protection of Muslim Graves, said among the graves demolished were those of Muslims who were martyred in the conflicts between 1948 and 1967. He said Israel would face legal action in response to the Municipalities Act. The West Bank and East Jerusalem are considered Israeli-occupied areas under international law. Thousands of Tunisians demonstrated in the capital Tunis on Sunday against a power grab by President Kais Saied. Anadolu Agency reports that demonstrators gathered in Hydraddin Pasha Street and marched towards Habib Bourguiba Avenue amongst a heavy security presence. Protesters waved banners reading Constitution, Freedom, National Dignity amidst calls for the release of activists and journalists held by authorities. The group Citizens Against Coup organized Sunday's protest. Its spokesman, Jawahar bin Mubarak, denounced the coup and invited people to join the protest. On July 25th, Said ousted the government, suspended parliament, and assumed executive authority. The majority of parties in Tunisia reject Said's seizure of power. Taliban leaders and U.S. officials met for the first time face-to-face in Qatar since American troops withdrew from Afghanistan in August. Afghanistan's Foreign Minister Amir Khan Muttaqi said both sides agreed to uphold the terms of the Doha Agreement signed in 2020. Senior Taliban officials said they had positive discussions with the U.S. delegation and have begun meeting with European Union representatives. The 2020 U.S.-Taliban deal was negotiated by administration of former President Donald Trump. It demanded the Taliban break ties with terrorist groups and guarantee Afghanistan would not harbor terrorists. The Taliban has demanded its senior leaders be taken off the terror list. Taliban spokesman Sohail Shaheen told the Associated Press they won't work with the United States to fight Daesh. A group of 7 civil society and research organizations has released a detailed report on the impact and consequences of the global war on terror 20 years since its launch. Led by Georgetown University Project Bridges, the report is titled The Terror Trap: The Impact of the War on Terror on Muslim Communities. The report included a critical assessment by 30 international scholars of the US-led counter-terrorism efforts, its policies, and tactics. Among the topics explored are the history of targeting minorities in the US, the roots of the terrorism industry, and the role of Islamophobia in exploiting post-9/11 fears. The report addressed the restructuring of national security and surveillance, the use of torture, rendition, black sites, Guantanamo Bay Prison, and drone warfare. It also focuses on countering violent extremism programs, the wars in Afghanistan and Iraq, attacks on Muslim civil liberties, and the human impact of these policies. Algeria's president on Sunday demanded France's total respect for his country after rising tensions between the two nations over remarks by French President Emmanuel Macron. President Abdelmadjid Tebboune said that the return of the Algerian ambassador to France is conditional on France respecting Algeria's sovereignty, institutions, and power. Tebboune said France should forget Algeria was once a French colony. Macron stoked tensions with Algiers during a recent program. According to remarks reported by Le Monde, Macron told descendants of Algiers' War of Independence that the version of history transmitted to Algerians was not based on truth, but on a discourse of hatred towards France. Algerian Foreign Minister Ramtane Lamamra told France to decolonize its history. Volume of Islamic bond issuance is expected to increase over the next 10 years as African nations join other key Islamic markets, according to rating agency Moody's. Major bond markets include the Gulf Cooperation Council, or GCC, Turkey, Malaysia, and Indonesia. Massive amounts of financing needed to fund Africa's infrastructure deficit will be a key driver. The Islamic bonds are called sukuk in Arabic. Sukuk issuances in Africa contribute less than 0.5% of global outstanding sukuk. 2020 was a record year for sukuk issuance, dominated by the GCC at $205 billion. Moody's predicts that West African nations will lead in sukuk issuances. Egypt, Morocco, Sudan, Senegal, and Nigeria are best positions for growth in Islamic finance. Coming up next after the break is our in-depth analysis segment, so stay tuned and we'll be right back after these messages.
If I could be you, and you could be me for just 1 hour. If we could find a way to get inside each other's minds. Walk a mile in my shoes. Walk a mile in my shoes. Well, before you abuse, criticize, and accuse. Walk a mile in my shoes.
There are 16 million children struggling with hunger in America. That's 1 in 5 daughters, sons, neighbors, and classmates who don't know where their next meal is coming from. Yet billions of pounds of good food go to waste every year. It's time we do something about it. Feeding America is a nationwide network of food banks that helps provide meals to millions of kids and families in need. Visit feedingamerica.org to help them feed even more. Together, we can solve hunger. Together, we're feeding America.
Despite the development of a COVID-19 vaccine, millions around the world will not have access. We need a vaccine that's free and available to everyone, everywhere. It's time for a people's vaccine.
Our fellow Americans.
Right now, the COVID-19 vaccines are available to millions of Americans.
And soon, they will be available to everyone.
The science is clear. These vaccines will protect you and those you love from this dangerous and deadly disease.
They could save your life.
So we urge you to get vaccinated when it's available to you.
That's the first step to ending the pandemic and moving our country forward. It's up to you.
I am what hunger looks like in America. I am an 8-year-old girl who's not excited for the last day of school. Because this may be the last time I'll have lunch. Till September. I am a single father of 2 who works 3 part-time jobs. And that's still not enough to put food on the table. I was created by artificial intelligence from faces of the 1 in 8 Americans who struggle with hunger.
Feeding America, 200 food banks strong.
They took over my bedroom. Come on, come on. Okay, Dad. 1, 2, 3. Dad! You saved me. Dad?
Are you okay?
I'm fine, dear.
Your hero needs you now, and AARP is here to help. Find the care guides you need at aarp.org/caregiving.
Welcome back. In the report, The Terror Trap, 30 international scholars provide a critical assessment of the US-led counterterrorism. To discuss the report and more, we have with us Professor John Esposito. Let's go to Imam Abdul Malik Mujahid, who will be interviewing him. Over to you, Imam Mujahid.
Thank you, Hena.
With me is Professor John Esposito from the Georgetown University, who also founded and is leading its Bridges initiative. And they, in collaboration with many others, have come up with an extraordinary report about war on terror. War on terror, Afghanistan war is over, but war on terror seems to go on in the form of drone attacks, in the form of its impact on societies all around the world. Welcome, Professor John Esposito.
Thank you. I'm delighted to be here.
Tell us, what is the terror trap?
Well, the terror threat is taking a look at the way in which, when we now look back over 20 years, and of course, we've got the 20th anniversary, not only of 9/11, but we've just had the 20th anniversary of of what you might call the invasion and occupation of Afghanistan, or the war in Afghanistan. And that was a driving motive. And then it had both international and domestic impact. So it's a major effort to say that, to look at those 20 years and have an assessment. And there are many who would argue that what we see is, in fact, a rather disastrous 20 years, both in terms of what has happened in the Muslim world. If we look at Afghanistan and Iraq, they basically were occupied or in a major way influenced, etc. All kinds of lives were lost in terms of both American lives and other Western military that were involved, but certainly enormous number of people died in Afghanistan and Iraq. And after 20 years, what do we have? If one does an assessment of the American involvement, the cost of life, the amount of money that was involved,